Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today we have another Path of Exile 2 video. In this video, I kind of want to give you guys a little bit of the intro to how minions work in Path of Exile 2 because I will be playing the new Spirit Walker, and I imagine a lot of you guys are going to at least entertain the idea of playing the Spirit Walker. Spirit Walker is a new class in Path of Exile 2 that uses companions in addition to just normally attacking stuff. It's a very hybrid style playstyle, and a lot of people haven't really dealt with companions in Path of Exile in general. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a deep dive. Now, I'm not going to go too into a lot of the things that are unknown, but we actually do have, and I've studied a lot of it now, do have a lot of information on how the companions will work and roughly what performance we may expect. So first thing we're going to take a look at is their video where they showcased the companions in action against the boss. Now, obviously, we don't know how strong these are in, like, if we put together a build, how well that's going to work. We don't know that because the build they're showcasing, it looks kind of scuffed a little bit. But what we can see is the relative power between the minions. So in this case, they have, like, it only shows up as 1, but this is like 7 or 8 or 9 of the new wolves that come from the Unique Scepter. So we have that. We have 7 of the wolves that are from the Wolf Companion skill that's currently in the game. We have this like multi-armed gorilla Tamed Beast. We have the Plague Harvester Tamed Beast, which is kind of like the mosquito-looking thing. And then we have the boss here, which is Mighty Silver Fist. Okay, so those, oh, and the bear. So those are all the things that are attacking the boss. It's pretty hard to see, but you know, if you really zoom in, the boss has like 1,400,000 damage taken. It kind of shows kind of like a combo of damage that you've done. So that's kind of where we're at. And if we play it in like 0.25 slow motion, we see the boss getting pelted with all those minions, and it is doing absolutely no damage. Absolutely nothing. So what we do know is that this minion army, the double pack of wolves, including the Wolf's New Spectre, really is doing nothing. Considering there's like almost 20 of them, they're hitting for like a couple thousand each from the looks of it, which is very poor damage. And then there's this lightning attack that comes, which I believe is the affix on the Plague Harvester, the bee-like wasp thingy here, mosquito thing. That is doing a lot of damage. Okay, that did like 100,000, 170,000 maybe. It's hard to say for sure. So that does a lot. That is an affix of the monster. That is not the monster actually attacking, because when you use Tamed Beast, you actually keep some of the affixes. Okay. And then it keeps going, and then the Mighty Silver Fist hits it for well over 200,000 with the slam attack. So basically, we don't know how good this will really be, but what we do know is that the Mighty Silver Fist does way more damage than the other minions, okay? It does way more damage. It is not even close. And this isn't a build that actually scales all of these minions fairly evenly. So all these minions are pretty much have like a par on their damage output, yet the boss minion is doing way more damage than all of them. So today I want to kind of go over what the best boss companion for you to tame is. The boss companion is a specialty of the Spirit Walker. We do have the values for these different monsters. How it actually works in game is still a little bit of guesswork, so I can't tell you that this will do this much damage, all that kind of stuff. But what we can see is how good the tameable bosses are relative to each other. That is something that we can know right now. And I think it's important because they did mention that they're buffing companions across the board. And when they hover over their companion Mighty Silver Fist in this video, we see that there's this line here that does not exist in the current version of the game. Minions deal 100% more damage. They also say in the interview that they tripled the damage of companions. So it might be other than this. To be fair, currently companions with their actual attacks do like absolutely nothing. They hit like wet noodles. It is an absolute joke. But This changes things. Now, we don't know if this is part of the original gem because this Tame Beast gem is with the boss gem, so it might be a modified version. This minions deal 100% damage might actually be specific to the boss Tame Beast. And I think it is a guess, but I think that's actually pretty likely because the bosses themselves don't have like super ridiculous, crazy damage numbers. They're good, but they're not super crazy ridiculous. Another thing I want to point out is that Path of Exile 2 has been out a while. We also have Path of Exile 1, and the same people that are making Path of Exile 2 with the same ideas and the same concepts in mind have made Path of Exile 1 what it is today, which is a masterpiece. They do not balance monsters based on the summoned minion version of them. Okay, so what that means is they're not going to buff monsters so the Tame Beasts can be stronger. Okay. If the Tame Beasts are too weak, they would do something like this. They would add a line so if you tame them, they will actually do significant damage. Okay? This is in line with how they have balanced things in the past. So today we're going to look at some of the bosses. So I painstakingly went through every single beast boss in the game. And the beast boss will be quite a journey to get. You can get tablets that add affixes to the monsters, like the affixes on a rare mob, for example. So you can get tame beasts with up to 4 affixes, and I think it is well expected that we will be able to tame bosses with affixes. So it will not be go up to the boss, tame him, and you're done. No, it will be a real hunt for the best tame beast out there, and that is important. I will get to that in a minute here on why that matters. It will be a long process to get the exact affixes, like the perfect damage, the speed, maybe you want an aura on the exact boss you're looking for. That will be a real journey that might last the entire season, actually. So the beast bosses, there are quite a number of them, and I want to show you guys a few of them that I think are worth kind of talking about. So this is kind of like the typical beast boss. So it's a beast, and I am boss of tier 12, okay? Now, this is PoEDB, so they have these values data mined. These are not guesses, but how these are interpreted in the game based on map levels and all that kind of stuff is a little bit of guesswork. How they're interpreted in terms of minion calculations is another little bit of guesswork. Now, I did standardize all these bosses to level 90, so it's not like this boss will deal 7,000 damage. We don't know if it'll really, we don't think it's probably not going to be that. It's going to be something, but if we standardize the data mined values to a level 90, we can see that the Sandstrider damage is higher than the Scourge of the Skies damage, okay? And they have different attacks. And you can kind of see the different attacks and their cooldowns. And there are a lot of things that come from this because knowing which unique boss you're going to tame is directly going to shape how you approach your build. There's no one-size-fits-all for all the different bosses. Some bosses use spells, some bosses use attacks, some bosses use AoE attacks. Some bosses have really crappy damage, but then they have a cooldown ability that does lots of damage, so you need to get minion cooldown recovery. So there's a lot that goes into it. You really need to pick your guy and then make your build around it. That's how it's going to work. So here's some guys. So Scourge of the Skies, I picked this because, in my opinion, this is the most dangerous boss in the game. It is the one that flies up and does tornado crap and sucks you in, and you don't know what's going on, and then you're dead. Okay, this thing is an absolute monster. However, when we look at the actual damage values, they're not that high. They're really not. And the idea is that some bosses use abilities that players find difficult to avoid, which makes them really dangerous, more so than the actual damage values. Monsters are not going to try to dodge attacks of your minions, so that is relevant because the most dangerous bosses are not necessarily the ones that are most fit to be tamed beasted. Also, we have these lines here that generally impact the values that we see for minions, and I don't think have much of a factor in the actual game. So it will get 288% life, possibly of normal, and 250% damage. These are fairly good, but fairly normal values. You will find normal or rare monsters that have similar values to these. Okay, so that's like Scourge of the Skies. Sandstrider, another one, you know, the life is the same, the damage is a little bit higher, the damage values are a little bit higher, but this is the shark boss, by the way. Some attacks have less damage, which is not factored in this, and some attacks do more damage. So it's also important to kind of see the slew of possible attacks, and ultimately we'll have to really play with this to really know how well it will work. This is the shark boss, for example. So these are actually not very good. I've gone through all the beasts, and how are these not very good? Well, remember that not all beasts have the same reservation costs. So some beasts are going to be not very good, but certainly they're going to reserve less spirit. So if you're playing the build where you have many different companions, or perhaps you want to fit in many different auras, it might actually make sense to use a more middle-of-the-road boss because of a favorable spirit cost. That's absolutely possible. So it doesn't mean that these are completely worthless, but it does mean that if you are making a build where you want maximum output of your boss beast, this is definitely not what you want to pick. There are a few choices that I think are actually very good. And the one that they used in the highlight is the Mighty Silver Fist. So the Mighty Silver Fist is actually the jungler. This is the campaign version, but we're going to want to get the map versions of these bosses because we want to put affixes on them to keep those affixes for our tamed boss beasts. Okay, so the Mighty Silver Fist is actually, in my opinion, the best one, and I'll go over as to why. But the map version is Zekoa the Headcrusher. Okay, so it is absolutely identical in terms of how it works. It's literally just the map version of the boss. Now, this one is also in boss rush area. This is kind of the channeled bosses in a unique map, but your tablets do not work on unique maps. At least right now they don't. So you cannot put affixes on this one. If that changes, it's actually really good because, you know, it's going to be hard to find one with good affixes. So in my opinion, the Headcrusher is the best one. Let's have a quick look. So it has 250% life. It has even 0 all resist, which is actually good because a lot of monsters have a resistance that's very crazy high and another that's very crazy low. When it comes to balancing their resists with passives and gear, that actually becomes very challenging to do. Often a positive resist is wasted. The damage multiplier for summon is 463%, which is actually ridiculously high. I don't believe there is a normal or rare monster that has a percentage this high. So this is the actual boss tier of damage percents. Actually crazy high. The base damage, again, we don't know if this is really accurate. The base damage, like 13k, and most attacks do like 2.5k. But if you look at like Scourge of the Skies, you know, it's basically double that, right? So relatively, it's going to hit as a minion. It's like, I don't know how much damage this is going to do, but this is going to do twice as much. Okay, so that's what we know, is what I'm trying to say. Now, if we look at the abilities are actually very interesting. So we have kind of just like an attack that does, you know, 2 seconds attack time, which is unfortunately pretty long, pretty good damage. A cleave, the cleave has a cooldown, 6.5 seconds. So you have cleave left, cleave right. I don't know if this go back to back or if it just does separate cooldowns. I don't know. And then we have the Quadrilla Boss Spin, 16-second cooldown. It doesn't seem to do that much damage, though. And then we have the abilities at the bottom. So we have the Quadrilla Boss React Slam, 300%, 200% more attack damage. So this is actually not factored into this number. So this is absolutely ridiculous damage. Possibly this is what in the video clip, what the Silver Fist used to hit the boss to result in that like 200,000 plus damage hit. We also have the Sunder attack, which is 50% more damage, also very good. And then we have our Roll, which is 80% less damage. This is terrible damage, and this has a cooldown associated with it. Now, this is very interesting because if we look at all the abilities, what we really want the Silver Fist Headcrusher to do is not have cooldown spams, right? We don't really want it to cleave that often. We certainly don't want it to roll that often. What we want it to do is use this slam attack as much as possible. So I have a theory that the best way to scale the damage of this particular tame beast is through attack speed, because the more attack speed you have, the more spammable attacks you get. But it's not one-to-one. Like, if all you did were spammable attacks, and you get like 10% attack speed, your damage would go up 10%. But the cooldown abilities do less damage than the spammable attack. So you actually want the Silverfist to cycle through the abilities with cooldowns as quickly as possible so that it can spam the spammable attack more. So with this knowledge of the abilities, I believe your aim for the Silverfist Tame Beast is to acquire no cooldown reduction at all. Actually, if you were able to increase the cooldown somehow through some new stats or something, that would probably be good for the Silverfist. Because 10% attack speed is going to be more than 10% damage, seeing as the cooldowns are actually bad. So it's going to be like 10% attack speed is like 15 or 20% more damage. So it's very interesting, and definitely avoid minion cooldown reduction if you're playing with the Headcrusher or Silverfist. There are a few other notable mentions for the bosses. I am mostly going to focus on the Headcrusher. That is going to be my choice, but there are a few others pretty good. We have Morvac the Infernal. So that's the guy when he opens the gates and he just kind of pounds the ground and he's like huge. He actually has more base damage than the Headcrusher. So why do we not consider this one? So a few things. The first thing is the resistances are, again, very poor. So 75 fire, but then negative 30 cold. It's going to be almost impossible to cap the cold resist, which means it might die from time to time. These tamed beast bosses do not have exceptional health pools. 300% is not the highest among specters. You might not invest that much in minion life, and they're going to get in the action, so they're going to get hit. If you're at like terrible cold resist with this guy can die. That would suck. Okay. If we look at his attacks actually do generally more base damage because his base damage is higher. But a lot of them convert the physical damage to fire. Now, this is why what I talked about, it's important to kind of know how these attacks behave because you shape your build around it. If you want to shape your build around, reducing the fire resist of the enemies in addition to breaking armor for the physical portion, this might actually be a pretty choice specter. From my understanding and from watching this boss do damage, it is a good choice. It is a good choice. Straight up, this is a good choice. This is a good boss, but you have to build it differently. I think this boss does a little bit worse clear speed. It's much more of a single target boss. And also, you have to find ways to lower the fire resist of the enemy for these to be significant. Otherwise, these will do much less damage going up against high fire resist targets. Okay, so this is special mention number one, and special mention number two is the Black Crow. The Black Crow has much less damage percent, but it's pretty good still. Like it's comparable damage. It's a little bit slower, but it has some leaps, and there are several attacks have this more attack damage multiplier that I think actually would bridge it. Like I wouldn't entirely write off the Black Crow, but I would be very surprised if it does outperform both the Headcrusher and Morvac the Infernal. I'd be very surprised, but it's possible. So those are the three to keep in mind. Now, the reason why I think the Headcrusher is better than the other two is also because he shows up in two areas, Riverside and Rupture. Of course, this can change. The reason why you keep fighting this monster when you're doing your waystones or maps, whatever you want to call them, is because he's literally in more of them. He's literally in more of them. And, if you are able to use tablets on the unique map, he will be in even more of them. This means that because you're hoping for a perfect combination of affixes on these, this means that you're literally going to go through twice as many Silverfists or Headcrushers as you are Morvax and Black Crows, and that is significant. So even if all three of these were exactly equal to one another in terms of power, most likely you will end up with a Headcrusher, because most likely you'll have a better one because you encounter twice as many possible rolls on their affixes. And because of that, you generally should shape your build around the attack pool of Zecora, Headcrusher, Silverfist. Okay, so that's kind of where all that goes. Now, there is a few kind of skills I want to talk about, how to kind of max the damage of these tame beasts. Idolatry, I really looked into it a little bit. You basically have to use idols in your equipment. I don't think the companion damage is worth it. The idols are generally very bad, and generally will lower the power of your character. So you might use an idol to get the companion damage, but then your character is weaker because you're using an idol instead of a rune or something else. They did mention that they're adding lots of new runes, but they didn't say anything about idols. We might not actually see more idols, and some idol options are very crappy. In some slots, especially like weapons, you probably still won't use idols, which means you'll actually have a real resistance penalty from this. I don't love it, okay? The natural order gives you the unique beasts, and I do want to kind of go over the Katha's balance. Companions deal additional attack damage equal to 60% of your main hand weapon damage. Now, this means that we want a weapon that does lots of damage. Now, I also want to mention with this, so if we're using this, if we're using the bear, if we're using the unique tame beasts, if we're not using idolatry, what are we using? So I actually think the Vivid Stampede is very good. You basically have to move 20 meters. There's not a lot to get a charge of a wisp. And then when you attack, it uses up to 3 wisp to send out some stags. And the stags' base damage is 362. And they do lightning damage, which means you can reliably shock potentially if you have enough weapon damage on your character. And they can hit multiple times. We don't know if you can hit the same target multiple times, but it looked like a really good clear based option. So I'm really looking at this, and the reason why I'm mentioning is you want a weapon that does pretty good damage to Vivid Stampede for more damage. But you also want a good weapon for your Katha's balance, so 60% of it is added to your companion damage, including your Headcrusher. Now, the Headcrusher has pretty high base damage, but the Tactician currently has a node that's similar to this, which adds 25%, and it is noticeable. It is absolutely noticeable. So I don't know how the math works behind it, but I'm expecting this to give a sizable amount of damage to your companions, including your hero companion if you're kind of going all in on the Headcrusher. So why is this relevant? This is relevant because how do we use the weapons? The best weapon is a talisman, and you can use a talisman with a scepter. You will want to use a scepter because scepters have plus minion skills and really good minion stats, including minion attack speed, which, as I mentioned, acts as a ridiculous damage multiplier, particularly for the Headcrusher. Now, this might be the skill tree that I use. I'll see. A few choice companion nodes. They are adding more companion nodes, so it's not final. But I also think that, the rage mechanics are very good, and the best rage nodes for efficiency are the ones if you're shapeshifted, because commanding rage, every rage grants you 1% minion damage, every rage grants you 1% minion attack speed. That is so much damage. You can get about 60 rage fairly comfortably with this setup, and that's 60 minion attack speed. That is a tremendous multiplier for damage if the Headcrusher works as I'm expecting it to, okay? And that really encourages you to play with a talisman. Now, a talisman is important because, remember how I said this scepter sucks? I generally said the scepter sucks because the stats are really bad. It also cannot be used with a talisman because Lord of the Wilds requires that you use a non-unique scepter. So that's why I think it's not very good. It's not very good because it's just not very good. It seems like the Asmarian wolves that come from it are pretty crappy, the stats on the item are not very good. If you're using only percent reservation-based companions, which you're probably going to look to do because the other dog skill kind of sucks too, the percent increased spirit doesn't help. Allies in your presence regenerate life. Who cares? All attributes? That could be good, but it's probably not that good. Companion deal increased damage to marked targets. Not bad, but that doesn't help clear speed because you're not going to be able to mark all the monsters. So if you have like tough rares and multiple, again, maybe not that good. So as opposed to like a rare scepter where you can get an aura better than discipline, first of all, you can get a lot more minion damage. You can actually get crit related stats for your minions as well. You can get minion life to save on passives, and it looks like you're going to be spread pretty thin on passives. And most importantly, you can get minion attack speed, which is a literal damage multiplier on your companions. So this is very poor choice. I don't think this is a bad item. I think it's a totally different build. But if your goal is to get like the most damage out of a Headcrusher, which I think will be the best way to play the character, this is not going to get you that goal. This is for like using lots of different companions and having like the army playstyle, which might have advantages for clear speed. Okay, so let's look at weapons. What are the best ones? So the best one is a Jade Talisman. Let me zoom in here just so you can kind of see this a little bit better. The Jade Talisman is 101 to 151, and it is a talisman allowing you to use it alongside a scepter. It lets you use Pounce, which gives you a damage multiplier to the target up to 65%. It'll probably get nerfed, but it'll still be some percent. I imagine they're not going to redesign the skill entirely, hopefully. The stat requirements are very reasonable, so you're going to have just kind of like a normal functioning character. This is an outrageous amount of damage for a two-hander. It's almost unparalleled. There's like 2 weapons in the game that have a higher damage range. The reason why it's so overpowered is because it's slow. The speed does not matter for giving the damage to your minions. And it has a low crit chance, which also does not matter because you're only giving the damage to your minions. So this is super ideal, but it actually gets better than that. There is a affix, that is desecration only suffix, that gives you companion attack speed up to 18%, which again is an extra damage multiplier for this type of build. So this is absolutely insane. There is not a better weapon than like a 1000 plus damage Jade Talisman with this suffix for this build. There is no better one. But there's a few honorable mentions for different use cases, especially for those that don't want to go to that side of the tree or want a little bit of a different setup. My favorite pick is actually Spire of Ire. So it doesn't actually say that it has to be physical damage on your weapon that goes to your minions. So Spire of Ire has chaos damage. And chaos damage is really good because monsters don't resist chaos very much, so you don't really have to invest in additive chaos damage or chaos damage debuffs for your minions to make full use of this. This is relevant because you're probably not going to invest in whatever damage your weapon has. I really like the Spire of Ire because its stat requirements are basically 0. You need 150 dexterity to use the Tamed Beast Gem at max level, and 36 strength is just a few supports. This is literally 0 stat requirements, so you can make a build that does not go very far from Ranger and easily use this item along with the rest of your gear. 0 stat requirements is very significant. It has a very high attack speed, so your character will use spear attacks and just feel really smooth. It does very respectable damage, so the damage range here is very good. It also does non-zero base physical damage. You're going to be looking at maybe about half, maybe a little bit less than half of the damage of a talisman that is a good Jade Talisman that's rolled, right? But this is a 0 investment weapon, so 0 investment, no passive tree investment, not having to like roll weapons, just nothing, no extra affixes, no going to the left, just nothing. Just slap this on and it's good. You also have up to 20% leech off of your chaos damage. So this giving you recovery, which was one of the main weaknesses of playing the build and not expanding far away from the Huntress Ranger area. I call it Ranger because I'm a PoE1 guy, you know. So just very, very good weapon. I really like this weapon. The Atziri Spear is close to it, but I believe Spiral Ire is much more common than seeing like an Atziri Spear, and I think it's actually a little bit better. So very, very good item here. We also have the Hammer of Faith. Now you're thinking, wait, that's a two-hander. You're going to lose a scepter. You're not going to lose the scepter. The idea is that if you are traveling that way, you can pick up Giant's Blood. You can wield two-hand axes, maces, and swords. Just maces, basically, because the other two don't exist. In your main hand, your strength bonus is halved, which really sucks. And also, the stat requirement is tripled. Yeah. So why would we use this? Well, because you're going to need a lot of dexterity for the actual gem itself, and this actually has a pretty low baseline strength requirement. You could actually get Giant's Blood and put two soul cores that convert the stat requirement from strength to dexterity. Okay, so you could actually use this. It'll be 114. It'd be 60% of that. So it would be like, let's say 70 strength, and then you triple that. So you need like 210 strength. It's a lot, but it is obtainable. It is a usable item, and it just has good stats. All resist is good. You're probably not attacking very much. Mana regen is good, and shrine buffs. So you're going to have 2 shrine buffs that might, often will, affect your minions. And the damage does not include quality, so you can plus 30% on that. You're going to be pushing like 900 top-end damage for your main hand, rivaling even pretty good talismans. And the reason I'm even mentioning these type of options is because you can use Giant's Blood with the Unique Mace. So if you're using the Unique Mace and you have all those dogs that do like 0 damage, well, if you actually invest in a really good one-hand, you might get some damage out of them. So this is a really interesting option for minion army. Now you don't have to use a unique mace. There are a few maces that you can craft on that I wanted to highlight. So a lot of people don't know about the Molten Hammer. This is actually a one-hander, so you don't have to get Giant's Blood. It does have a pretty high strength requirement, but again, you can circumvent that a little bit. At least a little bit. So the Molten Hammer has a hidden line. You've probably seen one drop and just see this, like, wow, the damage sucks. Well, yeah. Obviously, you'd only use this if you were also using, like, the fire stuff. So if you had, like, a Morvac the Infernal as your star, and you're also doing, like, a minion army, companion army type of build, the Molten Hammer is actually a really good choice. It actually has a hidden line. So local weapon implicit hidden % base damage is fire 50. So the actual damage of the Molten Hammer is 118, not 59. Okay. It then, at the very end, at the very final calculation, half of it becomes fire. But this means that you can roll this as you would a normal weapon, where you get a flat fizz roll and 2% fizz rolls. So the true damage of the weapon is actually 118 top end on a one-hander, and that is absolutely unrivaled. Nothing comes close to that, okay? Nothing is even remotely close to that. But you do have to debuff the resists of the monsters because you're going to start doing fire. So you're going to be doing like a fire hybrid companion style build if you're doing that. And the other option is the highest weapon, the highest damage weapon in the game, which is it's okay. I would say it's okay. It has a colossal strength requirement. You're going to want to roll like 35% reduction of attributes required. You probably need to spec in the reduced attribute required on the passive tree. It's going to get really messy with this weapon, okay? But if you want actual peak damage for that 60% inherited damage, the Ironwood Great Hammer is your pick, and it will be very challenging to figure that one out. But really interesting stuff. Overall, I hope this has given you some guidance on how you might approach the Spirit Walker next season. There's still a huge number of unknowns, But at least when it comes to the minion options, comparing them, and the weapon options, and comparing those, we actually do have a pretty complete picture. So hopefully I've enlightened a few of you, and hopefully you've enjoyed the video. See you next time.